thought with everything going on around the world right now, we might start to do something a little bit different for the active management community. And we might grab hold of, not literally because we've got to practice social distancing, metaphorically grab hold of experts around the world to get a bit of an overview on what is happening, what they're seeing around the world, as well as drill down into some real take-home things that people can be doing in their clubs or in their businesses right now. And I think one of the challenges that we're seeing around the world is that owners are in the trenches. They are neck deep fighting this thing and trying to get their businesses up and running. And so it's often hard to see the big picture. So let's get some big picture experts in to get an overview of what is going on globally. And I'm really excited today to have our first of guests, which is Mr. Paul Brown. Now, he needs no introduction. He is Mr. Attention. And I was doing a bit of research, Paul, and I'm not sure. I guess it depends on what country you're working in, depends on whether you are the CEO, the managing director, the founder, or the president of face-to-face retention systems. All titles, but it's your business and you are all over the world. So you are an absolute guest of knowledge for us today.
Well, hello, JT. Firstly, titles mean nothing, mate. Everyone out there right now, as they well know, they've got many titles too. Cook, cleaner, real estate manager, lawyer, HR, payroll, you name it. We all wear many, many hats. Many years ago as a fitness professional, someone who's passionate about exercise adherence, I realized if I could systemize ways to help members plug the leak of attrition, that it would make those clubs more profitable and more successful. But really, I am the defender of the client. I am for the client. If members get a great experience, if they're successful and they get addicted to your club, if they get what they bought, you get what you got into. So I'm kind of that person working for them with you, the club owners, to make sure everybody's more successful.
How many countries is face-to-face in, Paul?
26, according to my chart.
26 countries.
26, according to my chart.
So I'm assuming over the last 8 weeks or last 3 weeks, because you had a little holiday right at the front of this, probably thinking it wasn't going to go as long as it was. You've been talking to your partners in each of those countries. What are you seeing? Like, if you're looking down on the industry from an aerial view, what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, that's a great point. Firstly, I did take a break right away because I was working in Asia and I saw this coming. I had the pleasure or displeasure of seeing the early evolution of this. And kind of like pulling up at a red light that you know takes a long time to change, I realized there was not much I'd be able to do. I knew our clubs would close down. I knew my services would no longer be useful on the ground. We can do a lot of stuff remotely, as the whole fitness industry is attempting to do. But my business is called Face-to-Face for a reason. And all the conferences, all the seminars, one by one, they were all dropping off. So I literally packed up the boat and went self-isolating at sea for a while with the family. It's now getting to where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. As you say, from a helicopter view above, I'm very proud of where Australia and New Zealand are right now globally. I'm scared out of my wits for the United States. And if there are any US people listening right now, I have nothing to tell you that you don't already know, that it's a very different experience in the United States depending where you are. They are not the United States of America. They are the divided states of America in their approach, in their attitudes. And I'm not here to in any way say who's right and who's wrong, but as an observer, I am fearful for my partners in the US about when they're going to get a clear run to operate. Here in Australia, I've got a pretty clear idea. You and I spoke a few weeks ago, JT, and I gave you a pessimistic view of what I thought. I'm actually revising that view, my friend, because I think we've done such a great job here. But hadn't said that, everyone watching and listening to this right now, you're in your own little war. I mean, you're dealing with a whole bunch of things you've never had to deal with before. I have full empathy for you, and I can tell you the only reason I've been able to stay calm through all this is I've been through it before in different ways. So you will come out of this okay. And what we need to do now is start to prepare and plan for the return of our clients.
So I guess the interesting thing is Australia and New Zealand are perhaps just a fraction ahead of some of the other countries around the world, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll say a fraction. Look, I know, for example, our partners in Singapore are due to open on the 1st of June, but there's a real concern of another second wave. They had a small second wave back here in late April there's a fear that that might come back again in June. So no one's getting too excited right now in that region, but they are optimistic that the government perceives they can successfully manage that process. So I actually predict that region will be slightly ahead of us. I believe Hong Kong and a couple of the other Asian nations are on around the same schedule. And it appears that Europe is going to be a fair way away yet. Bottom line is, the countries that have had the most severe lockdowns for the longest, you would think are going to have the most successful returns. But then you've got to consider density of population. And that's been our massive advantage, as you well know, is we're such a large country with such a small spread out population. And so that's really played into our favour.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You've been around the industry for a couple of years, lots of years. Have you ever seen in the history of your time in the industry such a galvanizing message from a government about the importance of just exercise in general?
It's a very good point. We're going through now what I call the Independence Day effect. And if anyone's ever watched the movie Independence Day, it's a bit corny, but
no, it's a great movie. It's like a masterpiece of philosophy.
Philosophical. What it reminds us of, Justin, is we're all bickering and moaning until we have a common enemy. Yeah. And when there's an attack from outside, we suddenly bond together. I always say, if an Aussie sees a Kiwi in a bar in England, they'll probably get into an argument. But if someone else picks on the Kiwi, the Aussie will be the first to jump the bar and defend them. And this is a similar effect. We have a common enemy. And so what we've seen is people of different nationalities, people of different regions, people of different beliefs coming together and working together to try to fight this process, this beast that we call it. And so in the fitness industry, you've got competitors right now. You're hoping that they will be equally responsible in the way they reopen and manage as you are, so we don't have to close down due to a silly second wave. So we're all in it together. We really are. And while it's definitely going to affect the people who have the lowest levels of resources, and we've seen that the lower socioeconomic groups in the world are the ones that are most vulnerable at this point, it'll be the same in the fitness industry. Those with the shortest pockets are going to be the most affected by this obvious statement, but they can also be the smartest. They can also be the more nimble, whereas the big players who we all look at as our enemy and think, oh, that's the big giant, they've got much bigger problems. They've got much bigger responsibilities. They're less nimble to be able to negotiate this process. So we all have our advantages and disadvantages, but the one that we have in common is a common enemy. So we have to fight that common enemy in a common way, in a responsible way. And that's, again, what I'm concerned about in the United States is you've got some people jumping the gun and opening business early, basically holding up the middle finger in defiance. You can be defiant to humans, but viruses pay no attention to that. And you may well end up doing more harm than good. So I would urge everybody to listen carefully to our elected leaders, follow their responsible recommendations to best as possible, and then encourage your peers to do the same.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you on that. I think that's critical. I love the fact that you just mentioned, kind of working together and having a responsibility of rebuilding our industry as competitors in the same thing, and really just complying with what we have to deliver is so critical to the success in every country, the success of us reopening as an industry.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't actually get to finish my point on answering your question, and that is, without question, all the way along, one of the good things about this is we have had our governments reiterating the importance of exercise. If you think of all the restrictions they've placed on us over the last 8, 10, 12 weeks, the one they never took away was our right to go outdoors and be active. How cool is that? How cool is that? We weren't allowed to get with our mates and have a beer, even though we could go and buy it. We weren't allowed to get with our mates and drink it, okay? So stockpile by all means, just don't have a bar, don't have a party. But the one thing they never did in this country, and they have done elsewhere, by the way, I've got friends out there telling me they're not allowed to go to the parks. They're not allowed to do any outdoor activities. Here in Australia, running along the beach, running in the park, those things have been protected. Our governments have acknowledged for our mental well-being, for our physical health, and to protect and maintain our immune systems, we need to be active most days of the week. Hey guys, there's a message we should be shouting every single day, is that the government has told us how important this is. And we, the experts, can help you do that wherever you need to be.
It's the best marketing message. It's the best advertising the industry's had, certainly since I've been in the industry.
And it makes you wonder how long it'll take I'm going to call them peak industry bodies, to then turn that information around and face it back to the government and say, you needed us, you needed this product to keep your people sane. Why isn't it tax deductible? Why aren't you providing for our private enterprise the same kind of advantages you do for the sick care industry? Not the healthcare industry, the sick care industry.
Yes.
How about giving us some of those breaks, because you needed us when things were toughest? We're going to have to come out of this with a little bit of help.
That's a great agenda for the peak bodies around the world.
Absolutely.
Now, I can imagine, and I have seen you on the beach with your shirt off, so it's not hard for me to imagine this.
One photo, you let one photo slip through Facebook and suddenly you're anyway.
You're the Aussie Hoff. Now, I am picturing you sitting on the back of your boat, the rod dangling in the water, a beer in your hand, and kind of just taking yourself out and pontificating on what strategies gyms could be doing when they reopen. You're just floating on the sea, as it were. What have you come up with?
Well, actually, C's, 7 of them.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because you're absolutely right. While I was floating with the line out the back of the boat, and that was just yesterday, by the way, I think people, when they're learning, when you and I do seminars, we try to give acronyms, or we try to give little tips that people can remember. You've got songs in your head that you haven't heard for 20 years, but you know the lyrics because lyrically it was chemically connected to your brain. So I've come up with what I call my 7 C's. And these are the 7 C's that every one of our club operators, our boutiques, our studio operators, our on the floor team, all these people, if they could remember and abide by these 7 C's. Now, the 7 C's are basically the 7 things that I believe a good operator is going to need to do well to come out of this well. We're all going to come out of it. The question is, in what type of condition? The last time I went through hell like this was 1990s, the early 90s, when we had Australia's worst recession. Apparently the one we had to have, JT.
Apparently.
I was in the middle of that. I had my own club that I built myself, and, like a lot of entrepreneurs at a very young age, powering along, basically running on adrenaline and enthusiasm. And then the government pulled the rug from under our feet, and I had major competition open up right across the road, within a stone's throw, literally. So I've been through the tough times, and I look back at what we did to get out of that. And it's interesting that most of these 7 C's applied then. There's one difference, the one right in the middle. So let me go through them real quickly. We might even make this shareable later in a checklist format. But the number one of all the 7 C's, what we're doing right now, is communication. And forgive me if some of this sounds cliche, but I can't stress enough how important it is, if you haven't already been doing so, to let people know where you're at, what you're going through, what you expect the future to be, though none of us have a crystal ball, what you're doing to make the most of the future, and to try to ease your clients' pain along the way. So communicating with your members, we know this is rough, we're all going through it. Hey, we're not immune to it. Don't pretend to be bulletproof. Some of the best operators in this country right now have been very open and honest about the pain they're going through, but at the same time, equally optimistic, dogmatic, and absolutely persevering, that they're saying, we won't quit. We're not saying it's easy, but we're not giving up. You should not either. So communication's your number 1 C. Tell people how you're getting on. And like all communication, Justin, it's 2-way. Don't just blast it out. Have a vehicle of recipient and replying to that. Yep. You do that very well, my friend. I've got to say, the Active Management Community Bulletin board has been phenomenal for club operators and all types of industry peers to share their doubts, their concerns, their fears, and their ideas. So keep that up, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the community's doing great.
Hang on, that's my second word, community.
Oh, okay.
Second word is community, because with that communication, your community is a combination of you, your team, your current members, anyone that's ever inquired about your membership, and all the people who've never even known you existed. Like I said before, we have a common enemy now. So think of your community more than just your database that you've got an Excel spreadsheet somewhere with a $ next to it. Your community extends to anybody you can reach. And letting the community outside of your normal network know that you take this seriously, you're acting responsibly, and you have a strategy. And even reaching out to that community for advice and help. What that does is that galvanizes their support for you, and it gains the respect of people who otherwise might have thought you were just a gym, just a personal trainer, just that guy in the tight shorts, just that girl. They might look at us a little more seriously if they see that we are involving everybody in this fight.
I love that word, galvanise. I almost think that's been underutilised over the last 8 weeks, but this can galvanise us. Love it. Third
100%.
C?
Third C, I'm not going to talk too much on this because I'm not an expert on it, but obviously cleaning. You asked me about all my different partners around the world. We got a group in Florida, and they were forced to close back in May. What they did, they had to let a lot of their team go. They've got a big team across all their group, and they couldn't keep everybody on, but they kept as many people on as possible with one job. You know what that job was? Get in and make that club spotless. I'm talking toothbrushes under the benches. I'm talking like when they reopen, it will look like the club was absolutely brand new. And some of these clubs have been there for over 15 years, and they're massive clubs. By Australian standards, they'd be bigger than any club in Australia by far. So cleaning is critical. Do that now while you're closed. Make sure your club is spotless. Then communicate with your members, clients, community that you've done that. And then, of course, when you open, you've got to have a very stringent policy on how you're going to manage that. I'm not a cleaning expert. There are guidelines out there available. But the key is it's got to be very visible. Total transparency. Here's what we've done. Here's what we're going to continue to do. Here's what we need you to do so we all feel safe here. We all feel safe. Because really, I don't think the cleaning is as necessary as some people think. It's important, but I would say we've all gone 10% over the top just in case. And that's a good thing. Don't back off on that, but make good of that by communicating it. The best thing about it is letting people feel, at ease when they enter our environments.
I wonder if we've gone 10% over, or whether we've actually been 10 or 15% below what we should have been doing, and we're actually just back at what we should be doing.
Well, the group I spoke of were actually impeccable at cleaning prior. I mean, they would go around with ultraviolet lights and check for they're very, very thorough. I give them a plug, Fitness CF in Florida, in Orlando. I chose them because they were really good at cleaning before, but when they couldn't open, they just took it to a whole new level. Yeah. So they're a really good example of, we want our members to know when we open our doors, we've left nothing to chance. And I think you're right, JT. Maybe there are some other clubs out there that weren't quite as efficient in the past. And I've always said, very few people join our clubs when they're not clean, but many people leave when they're not clean.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love that.
Yeah, they'll ignore it at first, but sooner or later.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 is clearance. Clearance is my C word for safe distancing. Now, there's a lot of questions out there on how we're going to do in our clubs. Back in Singapore in January this year, I was working out in a club. I was actually mystery shopping the club, and they had witches' hats on every second treadmill.
In January?
I thought to myself, oh my God, what a crap club. Every second treadmill's out of order. And then when someone explained to me, no, we're spacing usage of the equipment. Now, this is January, because you've got to remember, this whole thing started in December in China, and Singapore was the first communication hub because of the travel. There have a lot of Chinese business people doing work there. So very early on, there were some concerns. I think it might have been the very end of January, but certainly there's no doubt about it. They were one of the first places to say, we've got to spread people out. And what I'm trying to share is this. You don't have to wheel every second piece of equipment into a spare room, because no one has that spare room, right? All you have to do is think smart. They just put a witch's hat on every second machine. That was it. And that gave you the distance you need. I've seen images of big perspex screens and stuff like that. I'm not sure that that's going to be a practical thing for our fitness industry with the financial hit that they've taken already. Yeah. So I think we're going to have to be more common sense about, in my view, we might have to be more commonsensical about it and say, we just need to show our members what is a safe distance to keep people apart. We can't force them, but if we are encouraging that, then that clearance, and that's going to be, you've seen it already. There are supermarkets that have markers on the floor to space people out. Just think, what are all the other businesses already doing that are open? How can we borrow from that to show our community we're keeping people at a safe distance?
And at least if there's a cone on the treadmill next to me, if I'm on a treadmill, I might be able to see how fast the person's going on the second treadmill along for me to keep up with them. But if I've got one of those big barricades, I can't see anything. So there's no motivation, no peer group pressure to speed up on the treadmill.
You're not competitive at all, are you, Justin?
Not in the slightest.
Very good. All right. So the 3C so far: communication, community, and clearing, and cleaning, and then clearance. Number 5 is my favorite one. It's the one that I've devoted my life to. And this is where I really want to hone in: coaching. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, and you had a great post on your community page a couple of weeks ago, Justin, about habits, about how you believed, and you actually pointed out, if I remember correctly, that the old 30 days to form a habit might now be 60 days to form a habit. Interestingly enough, in my 25 years of retention focus, I'm right in the middle, 42 days. I believe if you can get someone to do the right thing for 6 weeks, it can now become their preferred behavior. I'm not saying it's bulletproof. I'm not saying that they couldn't stray off the track. But if you get someone to do a good pattern of behavior regularly within 6 weeks, it becomes their preferred behavior.
And is your gut feel that a lot of members would have broken that preferred behavior because we've been gone for 6, 7, 8, sometimes longer weeks?
Well, let's go the other way. They've had 6, 7, or 8 weeks to develop a new preferred behavior called Netflix or Foxtel, whatever life they've been forced to do through this has become, and here's a cliche that has been overused, the new normal, right? Yeah. But the new normal is, what is your current preferred behavior? Now, when we say preferred, it doesn't necessarily mean logically you would defend it, but it's what you fall into. It's the groove you slot into. Some of your members are working out in the backyards. Some of your members are going for runs regularly. Some of your members are taking their bike out, like I did this morning. And some of them have just put off going back to the gym until next week when they open, until next week when they open, until next week when they open. It's really, really easy for someone who isn't as excited about exercise as you or I to find a justifiable reason not to do it. You don't need to put a lot of barriers in their way for them to say, well, I was going to, but this whole coronavirus thing, I guess I'll just have to wait till it's safe. You and I would never let that happen. We know that exercise is non-negotiable. And a lot of our members out there, let's say 10, 15, 20% have the same passion to exercise. It's less than you think, trust me on that. When I say you, I mean you and I personally, JT, but a lot of club owners were probably thinking their members really loyal, really consistent. They'll all be back as soon as we can open our doors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm warning you, about 2 in 3 will not come back on their own volition. 2 in 3 will not come back on their own volition. They will have either found a new normal, which is their rubber bands, TRX straps, and push-up benches, or their new normal is the couch and the TV, right? We're going to have to be prepared to coach these people back into the life that includes us. That's not going to happen in 1 or 2 visits, and you will not, in my view, be successful at selling everyone a PT package to solve that problem. The work that I've been doing for 25 years has always involved a step-by-step coaching journey to benchmark, find out where people are now, where they want to get to, and what's in the way. And then having a step-by-step journey to get them there gradually until they develop the lifestyle that we believe makes us indispensable. Doesn't work for everybody. We have about a 2 in 3 success rate over 42 days, about a 2 in 3 success rate. Yeah. But that 2 in 3, they're members for life, unless we screw up somehow. Whereas I fear right now that a lot of your members won't come back because they can't see a clear pathway. And there are some barriers. Some of the barriers, of course, their fitness has changed. Their health may have changed. Some of their injuries might have recovered, which is great, right? I know I've got a groin injury that's had plenty of time to get over when I go back to playing footy. But by and large, you've got to assume that life without the gym means they're less fit than life with the gym. So we have to start them at a new benchmark, at a new point, and then we have to step by step ease them back into it. And that might also need to incorporate their new favorite things outside the club that weren't part of their life before.
That's a great thought.
Yeah, JT, you used to always work out in the gym 4 days a week. Now you love to run the park. In fact, you're doing Saturday morning park runs every week now. I can't ignore that, right? I've got to factor that into your plan. So we've got to get to know our members again. We've got to start over. It's almost like we're returning from a break from a loved one and we're kind of starting over again. But things have changed a bit since we separated. So we've got to revisit. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And what do we have to do together to get around to those things? So I challenge every operator, whether you're a boutique, whether you're a big box club, whether you're a classic fitness center, don't just assume your members will walk in, press play, and it'll all be back to normal. You're going to have to take time to help them develop a new habit. I believe you're looking at a 6-week journey as a minimum.
I love a couple of things you said there, Paul. I love the don't assume that they'll come back. But the thing that really popped for me there, which I think a lot of club owners are probably thinking the solution is respectfully to just chuck personal training at every single one of these members as they walk in and say, here's a free session, or here's 3 free sessions to get you back on the road to coming back. But there's a whole lot more, I guess, psychology that you're talking about that we need to go through with the members to get them back into this habit. And I also love the fact that you've identified that they love walking their dog 25 times in a week. So let's manufacture our gym programming around walking the dog or surfing or riding your bike. Really, really powerful.
100%. Well done. And the psychological profile, as you said, that's number one. You know, people's behaviors are driven by this, and we're going to have to reset that.
Paul, just from your experience, I guess this is a kind of question without notice. Have you seen with your partners or even in the industry an impact on retention where a club throws personal training at a client and they kind of just dive straight into the training side of things compared to mapping out that journey and then fitting personal training in around that journey? Do you know what I mean by those different scenarios?
Yeah, I want to be very cautious here because I can sometimes come across as anti-personal training, and I'm not. I absolutely love and believe personal training. And in fact, my business, I funded the creation of that by doing PT. Back in the mid-90s, I was personal training some very well-to-do people to fund the development of face-to-face. I'm a big fan of PT. However, there's a time and a place. I consider when someone first joins a club, and when we say club, can we agree we're not talking about a PT studio? If I walk into I'm going to give Andrew Simmons a plus. PT, if I go into a Vision PT, for example, I've gone there looking to hire a personal trainer.
Yes.
So let's put that model to the side for a moment. Let's talk about a membership business, which is the bread and butter of the fitness industry up until recent time. A membership business basically says we're a club with classes and equipment. Come and choose what you want to do and knock yourself out. And if you have questions, ask. That's the traditional model. Well, here you have to assume when someone first walks in the door, they've got questions, but they just don't know it. They don't know what they don't know. And so if we assume that they're going to be okay on their own, you can bet your life that about 2 in 3 will fail in the first 30 to 45 days. And the other 1 in 3 will make it not because of you, but in spite of you, which means they have no loyalty to you. All they did was they came in and used equipment that your competitors have. So the day you annoy them with a class timetable change or a lack of cleanliness or the music wasn't quite to their taste, they think they can go do it elsewhere because you weren't the difference anyway. And I say you, I mean the people within the business.
Yeah.
Now, we think as a fitness industry, I'll fix that. I'll connect them with a personal trainer. Okay, that's great. What's the likelihood of your arranged marriage working out? That's what it is. It's an arranged marriage. Hi, you want to meet someone? Great. Here's my buddy John. John's a certified trainer. He got his Cert 4 just a few weeks ago. I think you guys are perfect for each other. That's like me saying to a friend of mine, hey, you're lonely, you just broke up with your girlfriend. I've got a mate at work. Love to meet you. Well, the odds of that actually being a lifelong solution are pretty slim. I'm not saying it never works, but the truth of the matter is, whether it's personal training or whether it's personal relationships, we need the right to find compatibility. And so given that, number one person may not be the answer, and also one date won't be the answer, I firmly know and believe in my heart that a staggered stage-by-stage approach where they get to mix with multiple members of your team increases the likelihood of them finding a compatibility partner that they then want to connect with ongoing. So that's when you present PT, is once you've given a client a chance to get acclimated, number one, to your facilities, programs, and business, get to know a variety of your team members, become loyal to the brand, and then pick out their favorite individual to maybe be their ongoing accountability partner.
I love that.
Yeah.
There are knowledge bombs there galore, everybody watching, for you to re-examine. And this is a great time because there are so many clubs that have not opened yet, but this is such a great time to redesign what your onboarding process looks like for when your members come back.
Yeah.
Like, surprise the hell out of them with a new experience when they come back, instead of just going, there's the gym floor, knock yourselves out.
Now, JT, the biggest challenge our clubs out there are going to have right now, and our businesses are going to face the same challenge. You don't just have your normal 100 members per month or 30 members a month, whatever you sign up. That's not your challenge anymore. It's pretty well your entire membership population. And we, in our businesses that I'm partnering with, we're facing the dilemma right now on how do we get even more time efficient? Because in the past, we've considered ourselves very efficient and mass producing these personal experiences. But we've now got a multiple of our normal client base. Let me be really clear. If we sell 100 memberships a month, we're only onboarding 100 new people. You're about to onboard 1,500 people or 2,500 people or 500, whatever your membership base is right now. Theoretically, that's the potential onboarding you'll need to do, because most of those people will have a new starting point. Now, that means we have to take the most of the digital content that you've been using well while they're away with your people content. You have to be time efficient and systemized. And then you have to be very, very willing to be disciplined to just do it in a cookie cutter way that might normally brush a little bit against your philosophies, but they're the kind of efficiencies the fitness industry is going to have to adopt to get through this massive stockpile of members in their current dormant state.
So with your clients who are using face-to-face as an example, are you imagining that or prescribing or working with them that a member returns to the club and you almost triage them to go, you're actually okay to go back on that old journey. You're not okay for that old journey. So I'm going to put you back into face-to-face and you're going to go through that again. And you might only be there for 3 weeks instead of the normal 6 or 9 or 12, but that's where we think is the best place for you. Is that kind of your recommendation? That's
a great way of putting it, yes. So the short answer is, I love that word triage. Everyone arrives at the door. You've got to have the ability to quickly profile where they're at now, where they want to be, and what's in the way. Some will have very little or no need from us whatsoever, but now we know. It's the classic forward temperature check. Yep. You're okay, off you go. But anybody who's got a little bit of a sweat, a little bit of a fever, oh, we need to know more. All right, they might have just jogged to get there. Okay, they might be in an interview with Justin Tangent, so they're starting to feel a bit of pressure. There'd be a whole range of reasons for that sweat. Okay, but the short answer is, my friend, absolutely. And again, a lot of businesses out there are probably tuning out right now, going, "This is all impossible." It's neither impossible, it's not impossible, and it's essential. You either do this or get ready to have very high attrition rates. In fact, my next list, the next C on the list is called conservation of cancellation. So my C so far was communication, community, cleaning, clearance, and coaching. With all those things in place, still brace yourself for a wave of exits. The minute you open your door, there will be a multiple of people who come in so they can go out. They'll be coming to the desk and saying, "Hi, Justin, I'm really glad you're open. I'd like to cancel my membership, please."
What?
Yeah. And by the way, the first time that happens at 6 o'clock in the morning, you'll probably manage it calmly. But then when 4 others arrive, and by 10 o'clock, it's the 25th person, and you're thinking, "I've done all Paul Brown C's. I've done everything Justin said to do. I've listened to everybody else. Why do these people still want to quit?" Because they're people. Because they're humans. And in this population you have right now, there's going to be enough of a percentage of people who have gone through financial hardship, who have a new normal, or have found another way that you're not involved. And if you're not braced for that, here's what's going to happen. You'll take it personally and it'll show. And when that happens, multiply your cancellations, because I tell you, that was me. I was that guy when I was going through the recession, when I had that big competitor open up around the street, when my best aerobics or group exercise instructors took the money and went across the road, and it started to piss me off, I started to piss them off, right? Not deliberately, but just by being defensive, by being offended enough to want to defend my position. Guys and girls, don't take these personally, but prepare for them. Have a designated desk with someone who's got a beautiful personality, who doesn't feel personally offended by these, because it's not their bank balance being attacked.
So it's not the owner. The owner is not the person.
Yeah, they've got one job. Listen, understand, but don't let it happen. Yeah? Oh, you want to cancel? Yeah, I hear. Oh, tell me why. Oh, I understand. Now do whatever you can to not let it happen. That is, Find a reason to flip it round. You know, you and I both know, mate, when someone's complaining, number one, all they really want is someone to hear them. Let me just not take this call. When someone complains, they need an ear. They need someone to listen. And their complaints will not be at you, but they'll be, or not about you, sorry, but they'll be expressed. So we have to listen to that. And then we have to say, hey, I empathize. I understand. I know what you're going through. We've all been through it too. However, and they've got to have a number of reasons why it's a really good idea to continue, and a really empowered position to bribe that person to change their mind. Just bribe them to change their mind. Trust me, it's better to give them 3 months free membership or 3 PT sessions or a t-shirt off the rack. Do something that makes that person feel like they were heard and they're being consoled and it's going to be okay, and postpone that decision to cancel. Put it off until they change their mind. Now, I'll give you a classic example. The very office I'm in right now, I haven't been here a lot over the last few months, and I have a fairly hefty internet bill for unlimited uploads or downloads, and I rang my provider, and I won't mention Telstra's name, I'll just say I rang my provider and told them I wanted to cancel. And they listened to why, and they said, I totally understand. And then, I don't mind telling you, they gave me a whole bunch of free months because they were aware that I couldn't take advantage of what I was paying for. Now, did they lose several months worth of business, or did they keep a 10-year client for maybe another 10 years? So, yeah, boys and girls, be ready for people who want to cancel for reasons that are out of your control. Have someone empowered to deal with it away from the reception desk. Give them a barrage of ways to empower them to save the membership cancellation if they can. And when someone does cancel, just accept that that is one of the casualties of war that we're all in.
And I think, I'm sure you'd agree with this, again, from your experience, is if we make that exit as pleasurable as possible for the member,
yeah,
then when things go to shit later, they come back. But if we make it ugly and their last taste of your facility is bitter, they're not coming back ever.
Absolutely. Well said, mate, 100%. And that brings us to the final C. Care. If you genuinely care. I've seen some businesses out there doing a great job of showing the community through their advertising and through their social media saying, you know, we understand what you're going through and we're in there too. And as a result, here's what we're doing. Sometimes it comes off as cheesy and fake, right? But if you genuinely care, my attitude is the leader eats last, right? The leader eats last. And your needs are my needs. I've got to make sure my team are understood, safe, well, and feel loved and appreciated. I've got to make sure my members feel the same. I've got to make sure my vendors and suppliers feel the same. I've got to make sure my landlord, who I refuse to give rent to, feels the same. Look after everybody else, the community around you, your entire network. Genuinely do that. Not because it's good strategy, not because it makes smarts, but because that's what's in your heart. If you can remind yourself of why you got in the business in the first place, to make a difference to others' lives. It's not cliche. It's just a common cause that we all work under. Caring will fix most problems in this situation. Won't put money in your bank, but it'll motivate others to spend with you than elsewhere because of who you are. And that's my final C. Use caring as a first rule in all those other things. In your communication, it's because you care. The community, because you care. The cleaning, because you want the welfare of your clients and customers to be put first. The clearance, the safety, the spacing. You've got less capacity, but that's okay. Better to have less capacity than no capacity. The coaching might cost you a bit of money to have more staff available at first, but that's the cost of staying in business in the long run. The conservation of cancellations, the willingness to give away a t-shirt or a session or some extra time, all because what you're saying is, I hear you, I understand, and I'm going to put your needs ahead of mine. Guys and girls, it's hard to do, but if you can do that, I believe people will care about you more too.
For those who are not Australian, you may not understand what I'm about to say. For those Australians, you will. Paul, those were some ripper suggestions. And fair income, they're absolute beauties. That model of the 7 C's, underpinned by that final C of caring, is a profound statement some would say common sense, but not being delivered because we're so emotional. I guess we're not thinking clearly at this present time. And those 7 C's really allow us to step back and analyse our business and what we should be doing moving forward. I'm so grateful for you sharing those. Now, I also know that you've been extremely helpful to the industry across the globe. We'll share this on the Active Management community page. We'll tag you in it. If people have got questions, pop them in the comments below, and I'm sure you'll bounce them. But if somebody wanted to have a private conversation with you, is that okay? How do they reach out to you?
Oh, mate, the simple thing to do would be to email me. I'm very happy to accept an email. Which email will we use? Paul B, P-A-U-L-B, or Paul Brown, either one, at myf2f, M-Y-F for Foxtrot, number 2, F for Foxtrot.com. Shoot me an email. I'll do my best to answer your questions as best we can. We actually took our websites down over the last 2 months because I didn't want to be unreliable at responding to inquiries. So we just literally took the web pages down. We're just putting them back up now. But to be truthful, we've always been kind of busy anyway. But the reality is we understand, again, fitness industry is doing it tough. So if someone has a question for me, free of charge, I'm not interested in selling you anything. Be happy to help you out further. Not a problem.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in the industry will take you up on that because the knowledge that you have and the experience that you have across multiple markets around the world is second to none. So
Thank you, JT.
This has been absolutely fascinating. I love the 7 C's. I also love the fact, and I think this is a great lesson for everybody out there that Paul has not spoken about, and that is this. He has very good work-life balance. Paul separates home and work. Today, I made a joke at the beginning of, it's nice to see him in his office, his home office. He said, no, I leave my office. And I think this is one of the really important things for our mental health as leaders. It's very hard often to separate work from home when we are working from home. And being able to separate that stops work bleeding into our lifestyle at home. Paul's a great example of keeping things very separate and potentially could give you some tips around that as well. Maybe it's a 20-metre boat and a fishing tackle as well.
Yeah, it's all about balance, as you say, JT. Well done, my friend. Well, thank you very much for having me on this very first of many, I'm sure will be very successful calls. You've done a fantastic job of bringing us all together, so keep up the great work, my friend.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate your time, and we will share the whatever out of this video.
Marvellous. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.